Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Well, it happened. A referee in the NHL was fired today. Tim Peel was let go for lewd comments that were caught over a hot mic during a game with Nashville. And before we get into it, I'm going to let you listen to those comments right now.
It wasn't much, but I wanted to get a penalty against Nashville early in the...
Okay, wow. That's a little bit shocking to hear over a hot mic going into a commercial break from a referee. But it is pretty clear what he said was not something that the NHL could end up tolerating. And as such, Tim Peel will no longer work NHL games. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to end up giving you my opinion as a coach, as a player, and as a fan as to what's going on with the hockey culture that ended up resulting in his termination. And frankly, I'm going to give you my opinion at the end of the video of to why I don't think he should have ended up being fired. Yep, don't crucify me yet. He swore over a mic. It's completely inappropriate. However, I truly believe there were two issues that are being talked about right now. One is the language, and that's probably being talked about less. Number two is the integrity of the game. Integrity of the game? You're going to sit here and sit on a high horse and talk about the integrity of a game. The rules, as we will walk through, I believe, are some of the clearest, easiest to understand rules as per the English language when you read through the NHL's rulebook or even Hockey Canada's rulebook. However, they have been completely bastardized through a subset of culture and norms that hockey has implemented. And I think Tim getting caught with what he was saying is really just a highlight of something that both the NHL and hockey as a whole has done to itself in terms of this culture. Okay, so right off the bat, let's talk about the guiding light principles to penalties. In Hockey Canada as well as the NHL, since about 2017, if an offense is minor enough and it doesn't impact the play near the puck, resulting in a clear advantage for either team, it can be ignored, and it's actually asked to be ignored. Because it has happened far away from the puck doesn't mean it's not impacting the game. The game is so fast when you're looking at the 200 feet of the ice that a player even 70 feet behind, in front, or beside the puck can impact and dictate the outcome of the play with a missed call. So I don't love this culture, but this has been a culture within hockey for quite some time now. So let's go over the rules. Cross-checking. You can't make it through a game of hockey without seeing anywhere from 15 to 30 cross-checks, and very few of them are called. The only time a cross-check ends up being a penalty is when the referee decides that the cross-check was violent enough. Usually that means a player falls down into the boards or is negatively affected somewhere other than the front of the net. It's infuriating. You can cross-check as much as you want in front of the net. Nowhere in the rules does it say you can do that, but the culture of refereeing in hockey allows them to do it. So what does the rule actually read? Well, the action of using the shaft of the stick between two hands to forcefully check an opponent is cross-checking. Do this. Not difficult. A minor penalty shall be assessed at the discretion of the referee based on the severity of the contact. So that really gives the referee the ability to charge the penalty based on the severity. So the original rule of cross-checking, or the first one written, 59.1, is very clear and easy to understand. And then 59.2 comes in and just blows that up and ruins it. So now we have no idea what a penalty ends up being because it's really in the referee's head or discretion as a professional. So key common phrases in these hockey rules. Judgment and discretion of the referee. Hockey by nature is a back and forth game, and as such, I usually end up finding that penalties, goals, and outcomes trade back and forth on a one-to-one basis, regressing to the middle. This isn't ideal when it comes to penalties because there's no place in my mind that I actually believe game by game that most teams end up equal for penalties. Yet if you look at the stat sheet, they usually are. So here's a bit more of a breakdown on penalty culture. Before a game starts, we all have this in the back of our head is number one, 90% of the penalties are even by games, as I've already mentioned. Missed calls are made up with softer calls. I hate this. If they miss a call, they miss a call. And instead of allowing the game to go forward, they will find or manufacture a call that normally wouldn't be called, assess that penalty in order to make up for it. My problem with this is the game direction has changed and you are stopping the game at an inappropriate time now to make up for something you missed before. Two wrongs don't make a right in my opinion. And as coaches, we will tell our players on the bench when a call is missed at the top of our lungs, keep it clean, don't react, They're looking for us. If you can usually get through the next 5 minutes of a game in my history, most of the time the referee will forget about it and you'll bypass that makeup call, as they call it. Consistency from game to game is based on the referees that you get, and it's based on the type of game you get. No two hockey games are ever the same, even though the rules don't ever change. That is frustrating. The first call of the game ends up setting the tone, meaning if there is a missed call or a weak call to start the game will either be penalized heavier and tighter as they will, or the game will be looser. Let the boys play. Certain players are targeted for calls and no calls. I think of Matthew Perreault on the Winnipeg Jets. And certain infractions are highlighted at the beginning of the year as overcalls or focal points. And some of the most confusing rules are written in really plain English. So I'm going to go over what I think are the 5 most simple to read rules in the NHL rulebook and why they don't end up being called consistently. Cross-checking, we already went through it. Cross-checking is a very simple rule. 2 hands on the stick, parallel to the ice, end up making a pushing motion. That's a cross-check. But it only seems to count if the player falls, and it doesn't ever seem to count in front of the net because it's a battle. Interference. Well, the name says it all. The rule in the rulebook is extremely lengthy and very detailed with a lot of if, then, or else statements, making it very difficult for referees to call. But really, if you get in front of a player and interfere with his path to the puck, it's interference. Yet they don't seem to call it that way. And we can't even get started on goalie interference because even with video replay, it's never called the same twice. Roughing, a punching motion used at another player's head. Well, we've all seen scrums at the end of every whistle. What's a punching motion and a face washing motion? We will see players bear hug, hook, pull players by the face. It's always just a mess, yet that seems to be okay after the whistle for the most part. Boarding. It's a violent check into the boards. Well, this is what the NHL is built on, those big, loud, booming checks into the boards that end up on highlight reels. Most of the time, unless the player is injured, boarding is never called. So the actual call of boarding being a violent check into the boards doesn't end up being called, and it gets compounded with the next one on our list called checks from behind. Check from behind is simple. You make contact with a player on his back or his shoulders when he's not looking, it's a check from behind. But you'd be reminisced if you wondered why they always end up calling boarding. Because boarding is a less severe penalty than a check from behind. So when a player goes face first into the boards 2 or 3 feet away, which is an extremely dangerous hit in hockey, and he's not injured, it usually results in a 2-minute penalty for boarding. Massively confusing, really tough on hockey culture. So going forward, what's my conclusion through all of this? My conclusion is the same as it was in the beginning. Referee Tim Peel and what he said about he was looking to give Nashville a penalty totally fits within the acceptable hockey culture that has been predicated and created by the NHL, Hockey Canada, and other hockey boards. He wanted to set the tone of the game by getting Nashville the first penalty and putting them in the box. Do I think this is a good way to approach the game? Heck no. Do many announcers on TV think this is a good way to approach the game? Heck no. Do I think the coaches like it? Absolutely not. As a coach, we just want simplicity and consistency. It doesn't matter if you call 100 penalties. It doesn't matter if you call 0. As long as you are calling the rules as they are written consistently, we can adjust around it. And same with players. It may take 1 to 2 months for us to adjust, but we will adjust. So I really think that it is unfortunate that Tim got fired for just following the norms and the rules. Now, he shouldn't have pushed the hot mic button. He shouldn't have swore. But again, that goes back to the fact that the NHL has a culture of swearing and lewd language on the ice from minor hockey all the way up to the pros. Just happens to be that the NHL has microphones on. So technical difficulties ended up having Tim get caught. And my issue with Tim getting fired is I think many referees probably behave in the same way Tim does, with the same language and setups to the game. They've been doing this for so long that I really don't think Tim was doing anything out of the norm that he hadn't been doing for the last 15 to 20 years. And it is very difficult to stop somebody from calling a game based on that, in my opinion. The real solution to this is that the NHL needs to enforce the rules as written and course correct officials from the onset of a season and have an adjustment period where, frankly, average Joe Blow fans can step in and understand the game. Players can end up stepping in and understanding the game. I think this culture that ended up getting Tim fired holds the game back and makes it less appealing to people that haven't watched it before. What do you guys think? End up letting me know what you think of referees, of coaches, hockey culture, swearing, or even the termination down below in the comments. Let me know how it compares to other games. How do you compare this to the NFL, to the CFL, to Major League Soccer? What do you think of referees in sports? Thanks for joining today. Have a great day.